So in this video, we're going to talk about Sam Houston and kind of the problems that he had while he was president of the Republic of Texas and some of the ways that he went about solving those problems. So let's start off kind of the four big ideas that we're looking for today. I want you to know the three things that President Sam Houston addressed during the meeting of the First Texas Congress. So what are during that Congress? There's three big ideas and things, problems he wants to solve. Two problems in the Republic of Texas during his presidency. Um, then two things that Sam Houston did to take control of the republic, and then finally, what were the duties of Texas Rangers and how were they paid for their jobs? Okay, so we're going to dig into each of these things a little bit. Today will be kind of an overview of those things during Sam Houston's presidency, and we'll move into other aspects of the Republic of Texas over the next several days. All right, so let's jump in. So this is a little different than the way we've normally done video. I'm not showing a PowerPoint. I'm kind of we're going to read together and read along, but then there will be questions that are asked throughout as well. So on March 2nd, 1836, during Texas Revolution, American leaders in Texas declared their independence from Mexico and formed the Republic of Texas. That should not be unfamiliar to you. On September 5th, 1836, Sam Houston was rewarded for his leadership during the Texas Revolution when he was elected president of the Republic of Texas. Mirabeau Lamar, a hero of the Battle of San Jacinto, was elected as vice president. San Jacinto is, so you'll hear people pronounce it different ways. It should be pronounced Jacinto. I grew up in San Jacinto County where we always pronounced it San Jacinto instead of Jacinto as it would be in Spanish. So Texans also elected 30 representatives and 14 senators to Congress. The newly elected Congress established a court system with justice courts, county courts, and district courts, and a Supreme Court. President Houston and Vice President Lamar disagreed on many things. The two men developed a strong dislike for one another. In October, the First Texas Congress met. President Houston stressed the need for peace treaties with Native Americans. So there was three things we were looking for that he wanted to take care of with this first Congress. He wants peace treaties with Native Americans, money for a military force. So they need to be able to collect some taxes and have some money to have a military, an army, a Texas army, and that could defend the Republic of Texas against attacks from Mexico. And then most importantly, President Houston wanted Texas to become part of the United States. So his goal in all of this is that, hey, now Texas will be added to the United States as soon as possible. That is his goal. So as we look here, if we just kind of get a little bit of perspective of what was the area that was claimed as the Republic of Texas is here. We've got all of this is the United States. We've got this is Mexico, if you'll remember. Now, problems in the Republic. What are some of the problems that Sam Houston faced? So from the beginning, there were many problems in the Republic of Texas. The Treaty of Velasco, signed on May 14th, 1836, officially ended the Texas Revolution, but not the conflict between Texas and Mexico. Mexico, if you'll remember, both sides really didn't honor every part of these treaties because there was two different treaties of Velasco, and Texas didn't honor the part where Santa Anna got to go home right away. Mexico said, no, we don't buy this treaty, doesn't work because it was agreed to by Santa Anna when he was a prisoner, and we don't negotiate treaties. The person that's in prison doesn't get to negotiate the treaties for Mexico, even if he's the president. So this says Mexico refused to honor the first treaty because it was signed by Santa Anna while he was still a prisoner, which is what I just talked about. In addition, Mexico refused to recognize the independence of Texas. Mexican raids were frequent in the new republic. So coming into crossing the Rio Grande was not uncommon. The small nation also struggled with many financial duties. The Republic of Texas had borrowed money from the United States to fight the Texas Revolution. It had difficulty finding ways to pay the money back. So the Texas Revolution had destroyed roads, communication systems, and homes throughout Texas. There was no regular mail delivery, no money to fix any of these problems. So Texas had plenty of land for growing crops and making money, but Native Americans inhabited most of that land. Settlers were under constant attack by Native Americans, but the military was too weak to do anything about it. So what is Sam Houston going to do? How is he going to solve these problems? There's many problems here that we're seeing. What's he going to do about them? Well, so to take control of the republic, he goes about several different improvements. Many improvements were made in the Republic of Texas. These Republic of Texas designed a flag. Houston was chosen as the republic's temporary capital. So the city of Houston was named after Sam Houston and is chosen as the temporary capital. Developing a transportation system was important to the economy of the republic. A banking system was established. Money was loaned to companies that wanted to build roads and canals to connect the Rio Grande and Sabine rivers. So they're doing some things about the infrastructure. They're doing some things about banks and money supply. Because without banks, you really can't improve your money supply very well, because it is the banks that issue notes. And so an army of more than 3,000 men was organized to build trading posts to encourage trade between Texans and Native Americans. President Houston did not want to anger Native Americans. So you'll see here a difference in the way that Sam Houston and the way that Maribel Lamar would handle these issues. President Sam Houston, he's lived with the Cherokee. He has a different attitude towards Native Americans than many Texans, and certainly including Maribel Lamar. And so Houston tends to want to try to work with them a little bit more than many Texans do, who see them simply as savages and a hindrance to Texas doing what those Texans want to do. So he sent leaders to have friendly talks with the Native Americans in an effort to get them to sign treaties and quietly give up their land. Not an easy task, and not one that many would agree to. Vice President Lamar, on the other hand, believed the Native Americans should simply be forced from their land and defeated. So land in the Republic of Texas was given to heads of families and single men, as long as those men weren't black or Native American. Veterans, men who had served in the Texas Revolution, were also given large plots of land to reward them for military service. To raise money and encourage more settlers to live in the Republic, land was offered at 50 cents an acre. So you can see, land is really one of the keys to the wealth of Texas. It's the state of Texas doesn't have a lot of money, but they do have a lot of land, so they can pay people in land. They can use the land to develop the nation. And but of course, there's two groups clearly noted here that have been left out, and that was African Americans and Native Americans. But what wasn't specifically mentioned, but is obviously implied here, is women as well. Women were not given land. Men could get land. Single men could get land, but single women would not gain any land. And married women wouldn't hold the deed or title to the land legally, and so it would be their husbands that had the land. And so therefore, if they left or there was some kind of problem in the family, the women would be without land. All right, so law enforcement. We've talked about, there was, if you've got a nation this size, you've got a reasonable number of people here without any kind of law enforcement, lawlessness will reign. And Texas had already been a place where many that were running from the law in the United States might come, and so there was certainly this opportunity for that to continue. So population growth over the Republic of Texas made the need for law enforcement very important. Not everyone who came to the Republic was interested in making Texas a safe place to live. Robberies, fights, and Native American raids were frequent. Cattle rustling or stealing kept cattle ranchers busy. Ranchers often took the law into their own hands, shooting cattle rustlers before they got the chance to steal. And so that was, that kind of that vigilante justice, or taking the law into your own hands. There's a sense where people feel, well, that's justified, but it's not the way to run a country and to keep a country safe, because in that moment, mistakes often will be made, and justice isn't being served in that case. So we have the introduction of the Texas Rangers, and To defend Texas and keep order, Stephen F. Austin set up a special police force known as the Texas Rangers. So Stephen F. Austin is alive still for now, but he will not survive much. Even the year of 1836. By the end of the year 1836, sadly, Stephen F. Austin, the father of Texas, has passed away. Texas Rangers protect the ranchers from Native American attacks, defended the Republic's borders against Mexican raids, and kept peace in the growing towns. For their efforts, Texas Rangers earned $1.25 per day, which is pretty good pay at that time. But what you have to recognize is they had to provide their own horses, food, and guns. So while they're out on duty serving the state or the country, they are not. It's up to them to provide everything that they need for their needs, and so that $1.25 a day is not quite as generous as it might sound. Most of you are probably thinking that doesn't sound very generous at all, but given the pay at that time and what could be earned, that was decent. It was not. They weren't getting rich or wealthy off of that, but it was reasonable pay. Frank Homer, a Texas Ranger, was responsible for capturing Bonnie and Clyde, two of the most famous bank robbers in Texas. Today, more than 100 Texas Rangers continue to patrol the streets of Texas, solving serious crimes and protecting the governor. Although times have changed and cars have replaced horses, Texas Rangers are still required to carry saddles in their cars and wear a circular star badge just like the one originally carved from a silver dollar. So that's pretty interesting there. There's also a checkered history there that this article doesn't go into, but that the Texas Rangers did not, while they were the law and they were the law enforcement, there's a lot of examples of many Texas Rangers actually abusing that power, and we'll see that specifically in South Texas, where there's a lot of racism that still existed between the Anglos of Texas and those of Mexican heritage in Texas. So that Texas Ranger badge, the Republic of Texas couldn't afford to provide the first Texas Rangers with badges or uniforms, so Rangers themselves made many of their first badges. Using a Mexican silver coin, Rangers cut a 5-point star in the center of the soft metal. Some paid a jeweler to create a badge for them. The earliest surviving Texas Ranger badge, worn by Ranger Ira Ayton in the 1880s. In 1900, the state of Texas finally began issuing badges to all of its Texas Rangers. So that is clearly after Texas has become its own state and part of the United States, is no longer its own republic and own nation, but is now part of the United States. And this law enforcement branch created by Texas continues, and so still today. So that is kind of an overview of some of the big issues that Sam Houston faced. We will continue to look at the Republic of Texas years and some of these issues. They will continue to be issues really for the duration of the Republic of Texas.